Okay, so this is Lab 4B where you have to do some access queries. I'm not going to go through all of them because there are very good instructions, and also part of doing it successfully is getting the right set of data, the right result set, sometimes called a dynaset. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the harder parts that you might have trouble with, or at least get you started and then show you the hardest thing so at least you can do that well. The rest of it you should be able to do from the instructions because it really is a matter of just pointing and clicking at certain things. There's not a lot of design, there's no design in it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got to open up a file. And I just see, I didn't see that too quick. I went down here. When I opened up Access, I had this open other files, open from my computer, browse into this folder, and go down to BIS 245, and that's my Lab 4 start, which you'll get from the Lab 4 overview, I believe, section of the Canvas course. So we open that up, and assuming this doesn't go south on us here because this is a weird looking screen that I don't think that's an issue. Enable the, okay, let's hope that's fine. Good thing to do is to get in touch with your inner relationships window. So I'm going in here just to make sure that we understand this. You did this in week 1, and if the current course is still structured the way it is at this time. You can see you've got orders, order details, you've got a customers table. It's important to recognize, just kind of look at all the various fields there are and what tables there are so that you have some idea of the lay of the land. Okay, so that would be your first step. Now, the first thing you're going to have to do is some simple, what we call select queries, and that's the focus of this lab. A select query is just extracting information from the database. So I'm going to go to Create, and I'm going to click on Query Design. Up comes what's called the Query by Example window, this window right here, and up pops the Show Table. If you want to do a query, what you do is you have to know what tables the columns are in that you want to extract from the database, and then you have to put the tables that contain those columns, or attributes as they're also called, into into this window here. So in this case, I want to run a query that shows me all of the customers, first and last name, and the country they're in, and they have to be in, say, the United Kingdom. So I'm going to just click on customers and click on, whoops, and that's actually good that I did that, and click on close. I've got 2 of them there. I can get rid of that one. It was an accident. I put remove table. Okay. I've got 1 table here. You'll often have many tables, but I want to just extract. And what I put here is I want the company's name and the contact person's name, let's say, and the country they're in, and right here. And I want to specify, move this up, that I want for the criteria, meaning I want all customers that are in the UK. And I could, if I wanted to, I could uncheck show here, and that would just give me the customer's company name and contact name for all UK customers without telling me that it's the actual, um, telling me what the country is. Of course, we want to put that in there so we can check to see that our work is useful, is correct. However, this is useful if, like, maybe I wanted to run off a list of all employees who have a criminal record. Um, but I don't want the person running the list for me to know they have a criminal record, or who's printing the list, or the person I'm distributing the list to know that they have a criminal record. They just have to do something like, I don't know, stamp some envelopes with their address on it or something. They don't need to know that the person has a criminal record. So I could select all people that have a criminal record, but then not show it here so that their name appears, but that it doesn't show that they have a criminal record. In this case, though, we're not talking about criminal records. We're talking about um, people who are in the UK. So I just put in quotation marks the exact spelling of the country I want to extract from the database right there. And then I click on the run button. And there you go. That's extracted the name of the company, then the contact name of the person, and the name of the country, which is UK. And in this case, I can see that I got 7 records. There's or second rows of data. A record is called a row. One thing you'll learn in a later lab is that it's not good to have a column that is not atomic, meaning we've got the first name and the last name and their contact name. This database should have been designed with contact last name as a separate attribute and contact first name as a separate attribute so that you could do things like merge into a letter, dear Mr. Hardy or dear Thomas, but leave the Hardy off it without having to do any text processing. That's just something for a future week, but that's bad practice to put a full address all the way from the street to the zip code all in one column. You should separate everything into its smallest parts to make it what we call atomic. Okay, so that's how you do one of these queries. And here's another little trick. If you right click here and go down to SQL view, that stands for structured query language. Access gives you a point and click interface, but what that was doing was generating an actual code. And it used to be you had to type in all this code and then press a button to make it run. You don't have to do that anymore because we have, if I right click here and go back to design view, we have this query by example point and click window. Now to save this, and we go, do you want to save your changes to query 1? And we go yes. And we can give it a name here. And in your lab, you won't do this exact problem, but when you do save a query, you should call it lab 4 underscore question 1 or something like that so that I can tell which one it is. And click on OK. And you can see that it appears down here under queries. So what's good about this is that, excuse me, is in the future, if we ever have to run a query and all kinds of data has been put into the database with more customers, and we just click on this and up comes the most current data for that query. Okay, so the rest of the lab has you doing variations on this and then telling me after you run it how many rows you got and a screenshot of it or maybe reading from it. Now, the only thing that I think you're really going to have trouble with is they have one question, the very last one. They want you to go into this SQL window here and actually physically type in some SQL so that it'll generate the point and click interface. So they want you to do it backwards. For example, if I go select star from customers, that's very simple SQL language that says give me all data from the customers table, and click on run and see how it gave me all contents of that table. They want you to do a really complicated SQL statement, which I know most of you will have trouble with it. If I go into design view, you can see what it did was it put the table here, and you can't see it, but it put all of the customers, all of the columns from customers, so that when you go into design view, whoops, not design view, SQL view, select star from customers, which is essentially what I had typed earlier. It just altered it a little bit. Um, so to help you with that one, I'm going to give you a little gift here. If you want to get through the very, very last question in this lab successfully, rather than fighting with it, and if you've already fought with it, great, because you've learned what it's like to be a programmer, because every space, every character, every period, every parenthesis is critical to making it run properly, or you'll get a nonsensical compiler error. If you're finding some people just are not built for that and get frustrated, so I'm going to help you here. If you've been trying it and it hasn't been working, I'm going to show you how to create that SQL, but I'm going to do it through the point and click interface. You would go to create, you would go to query design, and we want to pull from the country table, sorry, the customers table, and put that up there. And that's it. And then the query will ask for the company name. It'll ask for the country. It asks for the region. It'll ask for the postal code, and that's it. But we want the country to be equal to USA. And we also want it sorted by region in descending order and by customers by postal code in ascending order. There you go. Now, right click, go to SQL view. That's what the SQL looks like, and they ask you to physically type that in the lab. You can see there's lots of places you can make mistakes. You know, customers table dot country field. If you miss that dot and put a comma, you'll get an error. Let me just try to run this. Put a comma there, for example. So it's giving me syntax error in query expression, and it can be really, really hard to find. And this is not a computer programming course. People studying business information systems will have an opportunity to learn how to program in a later course. So I'm not going to require you to do that. I just go and point and click your way to create this query by example window, run the query, and then you'll get the answers that you need. So those are my tips for the access portion of the lab. The rest of it you really should be able to do by just following the instructions, because it's really just a matter for the vast majority of it is getting the right tables up here, you know, putting the right attributes or fields, as you want to call them, or columns in this section here, and then putting in the correct settings along in the bottom. So um, you may have to do an or too, like USA or UK, for example. For example, if I do that, USA or UK, and run it, then I get an even longer list, right? Because I'm getting not only UK customers, I'm getting USA customers. So that's an OR query. That's basic. That's one that might be useful for you to know how to do. And that's it. Those are my tips for Access Lab 4B. Good luck.